Hi everyone, Philip Cox here. Today we're going to be going over how to create an add-in in Autodesk Inventor. So why don't we just jump on in. So first thing we're going to need to do is connect with Visual Studio so that it can talk to Inventor and run our add-in. To do that, we're going to be using the SDK and template that's provided for us, and I'll kind of give you a little show where to go find that. So if you've downloaded with Inventor your SDK, you're going to find that here at this this location on your computer. So the public documents, Autodesk, Inventor 2026 SDK. And in that folder, you'll find the developer tools and the user tools. What you'll need to do is run this developer tools.msi to install those developer tools. And what that's going to do is it's going to put these two files, the VB Inventor add-in and the Visual C# Inventor add-in here. So this is the templates that will help you get your add-in started. And notice where it's putting it on my computer. It's under the Visual Studio 2022 folder found under Documents, Templates, Project Templates. Okay, so that's the first step, is getting those template files where they need to be. The next step is actually creating your project in Visual Studio. So this is assuming that you have Visual Studio. I have Visual Studio 2022 on my computer, and we're going to start up a new project there. So here, I'll just show you kind of on the PowerPoint, and then we'll dive in on doing it together. Is the window that will pop up when we start Visual Studio to create our new project. Then we're going to search for those two templates, really just the VB one, but you can do it in C#. And then we'll go ahead and name our project. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to open up Visual Studio computer. And it's always fun to see which window it's going to pop up on. Here we go. So I'll pull it over, and then we're going to go to Create New Project on these options. And that will give us all of these options here. Now, in recent, you can see that I've done it recently, so it's there, but we're going to type in Inventor. Now, one thing is when you're installing the SDK, you're going to want to make sure that Visual Studio is closed and then open it after that. I should say installing the developer tools so that it can go find where these templates are. And you can see here we have the two templates that we're looking for. So I'll go ahead and click on the VB one and hit next. Then it will give us a place where we can name our project. So I'm just going to call this demo example 1. This checkbox will place the solution project in the same directory. If you're doing a small solution and you're just going to have one project in that solution, you can leave this checked and we'll put it in the same folder. If it's going to be larger and have multiple projects, you probably should unselect this. For our purposes today, we're just doing a small demo. So I'll go ahead and hit create.
Real quick, before we keep going, I just want to see if this is useful for you. We just ask that you please like and subscribe. You know, the feedback that you give us is very helpful when it comes to creating more content like this for teams like yours. So without further ado, let's jump back in.
And that will create our project. We'll let it run here for a little bit. Okay, drag it back over, and this is what you should be seeing. So Visual Studio opens up. We have several windows. We don't have any code in the middle because we haven't clicked on anything. We've got our Solution Explorer over here. Will allow us to navigate to all the files that we need to, along with the properties. We'll have to change some things here. So why don't we go back over to the PowerPoint and kind of walk through the steps that now we need to do to set this project up to talk with Inventor. Okay, here we are setting up our project. So I talked about the Solution Explorer. Here we have the solution up top. We named it, in this case, I named it Modeling Training, but ours will be named Demo Example, but we also have the project underneath. What we're going to do is we're going to right-click on that project and go to Properties. There's another way to get to this. You can go to the project dropdown, and I'll show you that as we walk through it. It will look a little bit different because it has your name of your project name there that you can click on, but it's going to be the properties. And that's going to give us these options. Actually, a whole host of options that we'll slowly scroll through and do some changes on. So first off, it should be this way, but just verify that the output type is a class library. We want to, because we're looking at Inventor 2026, or 2025 is also this way. Anything before that will be different. But for those 2 years, our target framework is going to be .NET 8. If you're doing before 2025, you'll need to look up on the internet what your target framework for that year of Inventor is. And you'll find an Autodesk site that will tell you that. But for our purposes, we're going to be in .NET 8. Then we need to change the build output path. So this is where the thing will compile to. And so you can see the URL that we're going to be using, or not URL, the location that we're going to be using here. See ProgramData, Autodesk, Inventor Add-ins, Model Training. This .NET 8 Windows folder, it will create for you. So you don't have to do that. You'll need to create this model and training. Well, it won't say modeling training. That's just the name of the project. You can name it whatever you like. Best to keep it the same as your project so it's easy to remember. And then it'll create that .NET 8 folder underneath. So why don't we go ahead and do that? So I'll drag Visual Studio back over here. So I'll show you this way too. Notice that we have the demo example 1 properties right here. Or you can right-click on project and come down to properties. It's important to remember the difference between solution and project. We're going to the project properties. Okay, so this is kind of what we were looking at in the inventors or in the PowerPoint slide. So we've got our output type, class library, target framework, .NET 8. That looks all good. Let's go find our build output path. Okay, we have a different build output path. So I'm going to hit browse here. And actually, I'm going to drag this over so I can see what one I'm looking for. We'll browse, pull this back over. We're looking for C program data. We'll come down here for this PC, C program data, Autodesk Inventor Add-ins. Then here, we need to make the folder for our project. So I'm just going to right click and say add. Where'd my add button go? Oh, new. Here we go. New folder. And then we named this one demo example 1, I think, right? Demo example 1. Go ahead and hit OK. That will make that folder for us. Oh, let's go. I think I hit OK a little bit too quick. Let's double check that. So come down here, show it to you again. We go to this PC, program data, and then Autodesk, Inventor Add-ins. And then we should see that folder that we saw there. So we called it demo example one. Okay, make sure that we actually have it selected. Hit OK. I'll drag this back over now. And you can see there it is. It has that little folder right there. Boom. Okay, so that was part one. Let's go to the next part. So for this, we need to go into the debug section, and we're actually going to make it so that when we run our code, it will launch Inventor. So we have to go point at the Inventor executable. So what we're going to do that via a launch profile. We're going to need to delete the existing one that it makes for us because it's not an executable style. So we're going to go make a new one. We'll select executable, and we got to navigate to this C program files Autodesk and Inventor 2026 bin, and that is where the executable will be. So I'll pull this back over to show you guys this. We're going to come down to debug. We're going to select the Open Debug Launch Profiles UI. And this is the one that's no good for us because it's not an executable. It's one of those project ones. We want an executable. And then we got to go browse there. Now, once again, I'm going to drag this over. So it'll let me. Nope, it's not going to let me. Let's go over here so I can see that URL because these, I keep calling them URLs, so that you can see that location. These are things that it's going to be kind of hard to memorize, so just keep them written down somewhere in your notes. Or you can always reference our videos when you need to find them. Okay, so we have C program files. Let's go to C, go find program files, Autodesk, Inventor 2026. And we go to the bin. And we scroll for a good amount of time, or you can just type in Inventor. Define Inventor.exe. Go ahead and hit open. And there you'll see it in the executable. So we have our profile one here with the executable, and we don't need to worry about any of the other options. And that's, of course, accessed here in the Open Debug Launch Profiles UI. Okay, that is part two. Hey, give me 10 seconds here before we move on. If you're looking at this and thinking, we should be doing this, but not sure where to start, our team builds this kind of automation all the time. Go to KETIV.com/automation to get started. Okay, so setting up our project part three. The next thing we need to do is go make sure that a couple values are correct in this Inventor Add-in file. Because we're using the latest SDK template, they're going to be. But if you're using an older template from something else and migrating it up, this is something that you'll need to check here, which is the supported software version. So we'll just show you where that is, though it should be correct. We also have to change something on the properties of this file, this copy to output directory. We need to set it to copy if newer. If you don't do it, Inventor won't find your add-in. Happens to me all the time. I forget to switch that. So let's go do that. Go grab our Visual Studio. Click over here. Okay, so this one, the general rule of thumb is pick your year. It should be 3 above it. So 2026 is 2029. So we're good. If it was, 2024, we'd be looking at 2020 or 27 right here. So that's all good for there, but we do need to select here and come down to copy to output directory. We want to change this to copy if newer. And that will set that up for that. So that's last part of setting up our project, now we need to edit the template file. So modifying the template. So the template provides us with a good amount of code that will help us kind of ease our way into making an add-in, which is quite nice. So we're going to be looking at that. You'll see there's different lines that they've commented out for us for making a button that we can uncomment so that they'll actually do what we want them to do. And this is a template to how you can add in more buttons later on, or change the names of buttons and stuff like this. So there'll be code like this that we're going to come and get the part ribbons and tool tab and custom panel. We'll also need to go put in the button definition and add the button definition. So why don't we go do that on Visual Studio? Here, what file we're looking for in the Solution Explorer is the standard add-in server. I'll double click that, get it up here. You'll notice that there's regions here that are collapsed so that it's not all staring at you in the face with its scary long lines of code from the beginning, but we're going to need to open some of those up to get at them. So I'll open this up, and the first thing that we are going to look at for will be helpful is if you hit Control F, it will launch up here a find functionality, and you can just type in button, and it will highlight where it's talking about buttons. And that'll help you kind of find what you're looking for. But here on line 12, we have the button variable that we want to comment out that there. So with these comments, you'll notice that they're done by this apostrophe. You can just delete that, or if you put your cursor on the line, you can come up here and uncomment. If you have multiple lines, like down here, lines 29 through 32, you can just drag over them and that will uncomment them there. So we need this button variable. We also need the definition. For right now, I'm going to hold off on doing the icons. We'll come back to that. So I'm going to go and recomment those because we haven't done all the steps to be able to use them. So we get our control definitions, and we're going to use that control definitions to add a button definition. Here we have our command name. So if we wanted to name this thing demo example, we could do that. If you wanted it to be multi-line, you can add that like this. We'll put in an ampersand for connecting two strings. VBCR stands for Visual Basic Carriage Return. That's how we get to the next line. So now demo and example will be on different lines. Only in certain cases though, and we'll show you where that happens. The first time we run this will be on the same line because of a different setting that we'll play around with. And that is all we need from this line. We'll scroll down now, and we see that button highlight come up to kind of give us a hint that this is probably an area we need to do something in. Here's line 79. We need to get the part ribbon. So we're going to put our button on the part ribbon. So we'll uncomment that one. We want it on the Tools tab, or at least that is what they have it set up here as default. You can change that. You can actually make your own tab. Next, we'll uncomment this line, which makes a new panel on the Tools tab. We'll call it Sample, but we could change the name here to be, I don't know, Really Cool Tools. One note is on any of these, you have here, if you hover over the .add, it will tell you kind of what it's asking for. You can see the display name and then the internal name. The internal name needs to be unique. So if you're going to be adding multiple buttons here, you should probably come here and name this something that's going to be unique and correlating with the name. Not because the correlation with the name means anything, just because that will help you keep it unique. So if you need to add numbers or whatever, Just make sure they're unique. Then finally, we have to actually add the button. So we'll uncomment this. This is getting that sample button that we made up above and adding it to the custom panel. So that sets us all up. But what happens when we click our button? Well, currently nothing. We need to come here and uncomment the handler for that button. So here we have mSample button. On execute, we want this to fire. And for right now, all we're going to be doing is saying, hey, the button was clicked. Give us a message box. Just proof that we're talking with Inventor. Okay, with that, we can go ahead and run this. So I'll hit the profile button here that we set up before. That will open up Inventor for us. And that will churn and it'll probably open up off screen. So I'll wait for that. One note about opening Inventor through Visual Studio here is when you stop your code with this button right here, stop debugging, it will force quit Inventor. So you need to keep that in mind if you're doing any additional edits inside Inventor after launching it with Visual Studio, because make sure you save basically, because you will lose your stuff. So Inventor, of course, is opened on the wrong screen, but I'm going to drag this one over. You will see, if we've all done it correctly, you will see this window which says, hey, I noticed that there's this new add-in that you've made, but we've blocked it. And it says, hey, do you want to launch, are you okay with that? Or do you want to launch the add-in manager? I'll go ahead and hit launch add-in manager and show you what that launches. Actually, I'm going to close this and drag Inventor over and then show you how to launch the add-in manager if you accidentally click the OK button. So I'll get out of there, drag this over. Here in the Tools tab, whether you're in a part assembly or this menu, you can click Add-ins and it will launch the same thing that came up before. And you'll notice we can navigate down to Demo Example 1. Here we are. It says it's blocked. Okay, so let's unblock that and hit load automatically and loaded to unloaded. This will allow it to actually load our add-in. Then we'll hit OK. Okay, it's yelling at us. So let's go ahead and let it go here. And now let's go. So we put it in the parts tool. So we need to go open up the part. And we can run this on any part, just as long as it is a part. And come to the Tools tab. Now that we've gotten into the part file, we're in the Tools tab. You'll see we have a whole bunch of extra add-in buttons that we've added for other videos, but here is the one that we've made. So there's our demo example, our really cool Tools tab. We click it and the button was clicked. So you can see it is running our code. So this has been how to create an add-in in Inventor using Visual Studio. Please follow along on the series to learn more about add-ins and automating in Inventor. Thank you.
Hi everyone, a quick pause before we go on. The partner you choose for your Autodesk environment matters more than most teams realize. You're already engaged with our content, but you may want to learn more about our ability to help you with support across engineering, data, sales, and simulation. Please go to KETIV.com/Autodesk to learn more.